what exactly is grass tetany? What are some signs and symptoms?
Grass tetany is a metabolic disorder of cattle. Typically what happens is magnesium levels in the body drop below the critical level. The animals become uncoordinated. They are not able to walk well. They'll become recumbrant, and basically once the animals go down, they do not have the ability to get back up without veterinary intervention. Winter tetany, grass tetany, those are both considered to be the same thing, just one happens in the spring, one happens during the winter. But most important is the cows are typically in their last trimester of pregnancy when magnesium levels are high, or just after calving when they have to mobilize a lot of calcium and magnesium from the bone and get some more sources from the ration they're consuming as well. The one thing that is different between winter tetany and milk fever is an acute shortage of calcium, and typically you give the animal an injection of CalMag or calcium glutamate, and within a half hour to an hour those animals are back up and walking around. With winter tetany, it could take 3, 4, 5 days for these animals to respond to multiple treatments and be able to get back up. So knowing what you're working with is important. Always consider, your nutritionist, use your veterinarian. The balanced approach or the multidisciplinary approach to figure out what's going on in the feed yard or with the cows if you're having problems with downers is probably the best approach.
Okay, so for this year, with the abundance of early spring moisture we're seeing and kind of the harsh winter conditions that the cattle producers and cattle have faced, is there more reason for concern around grass tetany?
There's been a number of cases this year reported both to the Ag Info Center and through the veterinarian system. We think it's a combination of many different things, not just the rapid growth of grass. Cows coming out of the long winter this year are in poorer body condition than they would, say, last year or the year before. So if they're 100 or 200 pounds lighter than normal, they're not able to withstand the stress. The other things that are happening, some people are using 2-year-old hay or green feeds or straws, which are typically lower quality forages, and that's contributing to the animals not being able to withstand the stress.
There's some work being done in Kansas that kind of suggests that salt intake is a key issue surrounding the development of grass tetany versus mineral intake. What are your thoughts on that?
It's an interesting concept. I believe that having an adequate amount of salt intake is necessary to maintain osmotic balance within the tissues of the body. If there's not enough salt, you can't transport nutrients from the bloodstream into the cells and out again. So I'd have to look some more at the Kansas work and see where they're coming from, but it's something new that is worth investigating, especially with the adoption of a lot of the mineral products that have limited salt. And some of the products out there right now are using a potassium chloride as the salt rather than sodium, which could eventually cause more problems with that extra potassium going into the ration.
So it's important to have a balanced ration and to feed it in a way that you won't waste any of that ration.
You need to know what the cows are actually eating, not just what's written down on paper. A feeding trial in Lacombe back in 2007, 2008 showed that cows can waste any place from 12 to 25% of the feed that's put out in front of them. And typically the losses are the high quality portions of the forage. Now with the alfalfa grass hay that we had, only 10% alfalfa, we found that the cows were actually consuming 33% less calcium, 25% less phosphorus, and about 24% less magnesium compared to what was in the ration report. So it's not only what's on the paper, it's what they're eating and how, the delivery process as well. What I'd like to see happen is farmers using a balanced approach when they're feeding their cattle. It's not just a mineral block or a salt block along with a mineral block. Have the products work together Wintertime, cows typically eat 25% more salt mineral product if it's fed in a loose form rather than a block form. And if you're having difficulties getting these cows to consume the salt and mineral, place a feeding station right at the loafing area. Work out in Nebraska from the 80s showed that 75% of the salt consumption occurs at night.
And you talked about delivery of the feed, so could you expand on that? What's the best way to deliver our feed?
If you can prevent the cows from wasting the feed, it's going to save you money in the long run. I know that people are not going to park their tractors and their bale processors in the bush because it's a convenience factor. If you're using a tractor and bale processor, use a fence line bunk feeder or portable bunk feeders so that the cows can't walk across the feed and waste it. So there are certain types of bale feeders for guys using round bales that have a cradle inside it that reduces waste to 3 to 5% as well. So anything you can do to keep the feed inside the feeder and not let the cows walk on it or soil on it, you're going to improve your efficiency economically.